You know what a philosophy is? Philosophy is basically your worldview. Things that shape the way you look at events and say, this is why this happens, this is why it doesn't happen. This is what we're supposed to do with this when it happens. This is how I'm supposed to react to this. Philosophy, your worldview. John took all of those huge concepts and said, okay, now we're talking about Jesus. Huge, huge concepts. The force behind creation. Life itself. Light. Truth. Grace. And he poured them into flesh. All of that became flesh and lived for a while among us. How do you take all of that power? How do you take all of those amazing ideas? How do you take them and combine them all into one body? One person. And now let's talk about Jesus, he says. That's who Jesus is. Yeah, we have a name. We think of him as Jesus, which is really a bad way of saying his name, okay, because of that hard J. And we think about a date, and we think about a time in history that he might have lived and what his life was like, and what it was like for him to be a child and to go to the temple at 12 and all of those good things. But you know what? Do we think of him as all of what John has just said poured into flesh? And we talk about his flesh a lot. As disciples, we like to remind each other every Sunday morning as we take the Lord's Supper, right? The bread that represents his body, his flesh. And the fruit of the vine that represents his blood. And we remember that. And we become very intimate with that because we take it into us and we remember that God became flesh, that he lived a while among us. We're okay with that. As disciples, we kind of get used to that, right? Sometimes we forget what became flesh. Who became flesh? The Logos, the reason, the power, the life, the grace, the truth became flesh. God became. John said, let me tell you about somebody I met. Somebody I touched. Felt, handled. Somebody I followed around. Somebody I kind of made some stupid mistakes and said some weird things to. Somebody that I didn't always agree with. Somebody that I felt loved by. Let me tell you about this person. It was God. It was God. Do you want to listen to the rest of the story? Do you want John to remind you of some things that you might have forgot about what it was like to have God talking to you? Interacting with you? Yeah, me too. Well, let's start next week. We'll start next week. This week it's enough. It's enough to know that it was God who became flesh. It was the Logos. It was a Greek philosophical idea. It was a Hebrew truth. It was all of that combined into one that became the Word. And He was there. He was there at the beginning. You were created because of Him. It was His reason, His intellect, His desire that made you and made everything you see. And He was part of all of that. And then He became what He created. we're going to see what it was like to hang around with him. Next week, we're going to hear about a guy named John, which is really confusing because the guy that wrote this was named John, right? But this is another John. And this is another John that they kind of thought maybe too high of by the time that John wrote John. I know it's confusing. Okay, we're going to talk about John the Baptist, all right, and his testimony about the Logos. Today we're going to sing an invitation song. The invitation song is number 556. It's Trust and Obey. Trust and obey. And if you learn what the Logos is, if you come to a relationship with God because he became flesh, if you learn to trust God, then number 556 makes a lot of sense. Trust and obey. There's no other way to be happy in Jesus. And as we sing the song, we're going to open up the possibility if you need to request prayers or any other help from us, the congregation, we're happy to do that. Again, not the only way to do that. Little pieces of paper behind the pew in front of you, right? You can write prayer requests on those. You can email us. You can call us at the office. You can call me, my cell phone. We are here to take care of each other. We're here to encourage each other to live a life of worship throughout the whole week. We're here because of Jesus.